بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. والتعلم والتعليم ذكر وتذكير النفع والانتفاع والإفادة والاستفادة والحث على التمسك بكتاب الله وسنة رسوله صلى الله عليه وآله وصحبه وسلم، ودعاء إلى الهدى ودلالة على الخير، ابتغاء وجه الله ومرضاته وقربه وثوابه سبحانه وتعالى، مع لطف وعافية برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم نسألك العلم لدني والمشرب الصوفي الهني وهبغني. اللهم نسألك العلم لدني والمشرب الصوفي الهني وهبغني. اللهم نسألك العلم لدني والمشرب الصوفي الهني وهبغني. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم، والحمد لله رب العالمين. آمين آمين آمين. Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah. We have reached to our 7th day of Zulhijjah, of fasting. We've been fasting from the first day till now. MashaAllah, Ramadan again, all of again. Fasting for 7 days already in a row. Right, tomorrow the 8th and 9th day. Inshallah, maybe complete the 9 days of fasting of Zulhijjah. If you have not been fasting, then start fasting. You can fast. It's only a few more days, right? Every day is a great day to fast, especially the 9th day, to fast at Zulhijjah, right? And increase in our amal, ibadah, right? Increase in our rewards in this blessed days of Zulhijjah, and not for us to waste our time in any way or form, right? Inshallah. Right, so last week we finished till do we start with Hasad?
Yeah.
Okay, now we're at Hasad. Alhamdulillah. I keep, because Hasad is it's a big topic. So he says here, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, min kitab Minhaj al-Abidin illa Jannati Rabbil Alameen, Imam al-Mujaddid, Hujjat al-Islam wal-Muslimin, Zainuddin Abi Hamid, Muhammad bin Ahmad al-Ghazali al-Tusi al-Tabarani al-Shafi'i radiyallahu anhu. From the book The Way of the Worshipful Servant, right, or the Path of the Worshipful Servant, to the guidance of the Lord of the Worlds, by the great Imam, the renewer of this faith, the proof of this religion and of the Muslims, the beauty of this religion, the father of Hamid, Muhammad bin Ahmad al-Ghazali, from Qus, from al-Tabarani al-Shafi'i radiyallahu anhu, to where he has said. So here he speaks about the desires of the heart, and the previous desires that we took was having long hopes, right? Basically, being very hopeful for a long life. That's what it means by having long hopes, right? So now he goes to the next disease, right, which he will identify to be as one of the. Some of them say, right, it is the mother of all major sins. Right? It is the ummuhatul kaba'ir. This disease, right, is the mother of all major sins, and that is hasad, right? And hasad is called the mother of all major sins, right, because hasad leads a person to be able to not only do some of the most heinous crimes, the most heinous acts, right, but hasad actually makes a person justify it, right? So it's even worse, that they don't even see that what they are doing is wrong, and they're justifying all that they are doing, because the hasad is blinding. It's a blinding form of envy. So hasad means envy. وأما الحسد فإنه المفسد للطاعة الباعث عن الخطيئات، وإنه الداء العضال الذي يبتلى به الكثير من القراء والعلماء فضلا عن العامة والجهال. So he says here, as for hasad, as for envy, it destroys acts of obedience. Right? It's a destroyer of acts of obedience. It pushes a person, or it compels a person to do evil deeds because of being consumed. You're consumed by jealousy. Even in English, you say you're consumed by jealousy, right? Because in a sense, it becomes like a form of it's a form of you say mania. It's a form of craziness, like jealousy, because so blinded how much you hate or you're jealous about a person, that even whatever they're doing of goodness, you can't see it. And you only see, you see the person with in English you call the green eye monster, because they really become monsters. And this is people of jealousy, they really become monsters. And we know that Iblis, right, he was the first to show jealousy. on Nabi Adam alayhi salam, and thereafter he sought to destroy Nabi Adam alayhi salam, and that is what jealousy is. It is a sin, right? So, for example, the other major sins, like for example, having long hopes, right? That only affects you, right? You have long hopes, you neglect your acts of obedience, you engross yourself with the world, so you destroy yourself, and you don't really affect anybody else, right? Hasad, right? Of course, you are destroying yourself, but it's consuming you, right? But you make the lives of other people miserable, right? Especially if the hasad leads a person to sihr, and that is where hasad usually leads to. Hasad usually leads a person to either sihr, right, or to do black magic, or ghiba, right, to speak ill of the one that she hates, right, or even buhtan, to slander the one that they hate, because you want to bring them down, right? So a person who has hasad wants to bring the one that they are having hasad on, bring them down. And we know that the classic story of Nabi Yusuf alayhi salam and his brothers. So how blinded they were, right? The brothers of Nabi Yusuf, that they could throw their younger brother into a well and leave him there. What kind of monstrosity is that? I mean, you think of the story. You look at it and you see, like, it's so disgusting what they did. To throw your brother into a well. That's not a light thing to do. It's not a small deed. You got rid of your brother altogether. And threw him into the well and left him there. You didn't even kill him, left him there. Maybe someone will find him. What if no one finds him and he stays and he starves to death, right, in the well? So in a sense, but what consumed them to do what they did? It was hasad. And hasad consumed them to do what they did. So it's jealous. I use the word envy because envy has a more evil connotation to it than jealousy. Right? Jealousy is there also levels lah. You can use jealousy, right? But in English, sometimes the word jealousy can be used in a positive way. It can be used in a positive way, right? It's jealousy. I have a slight jealousy. Like, it's not as destructive as envy. And even in, for the Christians, they have the 7 deadly sins. 7 deadly sins. It's called envy. They call it envy, and they don't call it jealousy. Right? So I know they use the word jealousy there. Is it? Yeah, same. Same meaning lah. But envy has a worse, it's an evil connotation to it. The word envy. You're envious of someone means, the thing about hasad is that hasad is to dislike, and I think he will define it in a while. Is to dislike what others have, wanting it to be removed from these people, even without you gaining anything. You see, even without you gaining anything, you want it to be removed from these people. That is hasad, right? And because you're so obsessed with this idea of removing the ni'mah, the blessings from other people, you do whatever it takes within your ability, to cause their happiness and their blessings to be removed. That is hasad. Even if you don't get it, and even at your own misery, it's like, if you're miserable, you want everybody to be miserable. That kind of thing. So that is, it's one worse lah. It's worse. So he says here, it is a disease, right? That has it's a scary disease, right? Al-adalu, like that means it is an incurable disease. They will say like a terminal illness, somewhat. Like a terrible disease, right? That even the word here is used for diseases that even doctors give up trying to heal. Right? A terrible disease. Because the one with hasad, if you don't realize you have hasad, then there's no healing. Only until you realize you have hasad, then you can heal from your hasad.
Who experience hasad, do they realize that it's hasad? Because they're so blinded to the bayat. How
There's the thing. So when you read the book, when you read all these texts by the ulama,
then what if you're going through it? Then how do
you learn what is hasad lah. You learn what is hasad. So you find yourself seeing other people's ni'mah and hating it. You just hate that they have that ni'mah. Then you should be able to identify in and of yourself, oh, you have hasad. You're like, astaghfirullah, I have hasad. So all of these diseases you can identify in yourself, but through the guidance of a teacher or this kind of books by Imam Ghazali. Right?
Then if let's say you see someone else and you recognize this person is having hasad, is it possible for you to
advise
that
this?
person up?
Yes, you can try to point that person right? And say that, hey, you're being very jealous. This is not healthy. Right? So if someone were to voice it, you see that person thinks is so, she's so pretty, and she's like this, she's like that. Oh, and I wish something would happen to her and it would go away. Right? So you invite, hey, your friend has Hasad. Right? So you can say, hey, you're being jealous. So you just need to not think that way. Right? To cleanse yourself. And then there are cures for jealousy. I just had a student who came and asked me, like, she told me that she has jealousy against someone else. One of her. My mouth is very dry, so it's hard to talk.
Oh, yeah.
I'm trying to.
Keep sticking together.
Yeah, I'm trying to. I'm fasting, so I can't do anything about it.
Like
I did do my wudu to try and, but it dry. I don't know why I'm so dry today. So I thought, I think I dehydrated. So the moment, and I can't break it because I'm doing a qada fast. So I can't break it also. But I found it so hard. I was finding it so hard to talk because my throat and my tongue keeps getting in the way. It's dry. Macam very hard to talk. Okay lah. Alhamdulillah. Trying to speak. Alhamdulillah. So she actually came up to me. She was saying to me that she has jealousy against her own colleague, and she identifies that it's jealousy. She could see it that she's being jealous, but she don't know what to do about it. She can't stop herself. She just feels so lot of hatred for that person, right? And just don't like all of the attention and like, the promotion and So she asked me how does she cure her jealousy? Because there are ways that the ulama have mentioned about curing jealousy, right? Which is, for example, the first thing is to identify you have it, right? Then you will work on the ways, right? So once you identify that you have jealousy against a person, right, then how do you work on the ways? Right, first and foremost, you make dua for the person in secrecy that Allah increase her in what you are jealous of specifically. It's a very hard dua. That means increase it. For example,
I'm jealous that you have money, so I
you have more money.
You get more money. So that you kind of like
force yourself that to do the opposite of what the jealousy wants you to do. So the jealousy wants you to have that person ruined. So you do the exact opposite, and dua, the person gets more blessed. Like that. Yeah. So if you're like jealous, someone is beautiful, right? Right. So you dua. So instead of like the jealousy wants you to make that person ugly, So you dua the opposite. So you make the person more beautiful inwardly and outwardly. Ya Allah, in the character, make it akhirah dua. Inwardly, outwardly, forgive her sins, raise her station. With you, so you do dua, right, to raise the person. So if you're jealous, somebody is better than you, so you dua even more that person becomes better than you. That is how you already break your hasad. It's really, if you do these kind of things, you like, because you have to be serious. Do you really want to be cured or not? Right. So there is or you like you buy gifts for the person. You praise the person on the thing you are jealous about behind their back. Right? That means you praise to other people. So that, for example, somebody is a very good reciter of the Quran, right? So behind her back, to other people, you praise her recitation. So if you are jealous of her recitation, for example, like so jealous, she recites so well, right? So behind her back, you force yourself to say, MashaAllah, she's a great reciter. So beautiful recitation. In a sense, because you want to actually bring down her name. The Hasad wants you to bring down her name. So you bring up her name. Behind her back. So, but Hasad is very mujahadah lah. You're going to really strive against your nafs. But it's only for the one who sincerely wants to get rid of it. Right? And of course, in other easier ways would be to give sedekah on the niyat that Allah removes your hasad. Right? That can remove bala, sedekah. Right, and also that you give her gifts, right? And you're extra kind to her, extra nice to her, extra, friendly to her and whatsoever, to try and undo the hasad that has entered into your heart, and for you to recognize that this hasad, it is from shaitan, it's not from anybody else. And to understand the hasad, it is a form of shirk. It is a form of shirk because hasad is as if you disagree with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has divided his rizqi, when Allah has apportioned the rizqi for everybody, right, and he gives someone more rizqi than someone else, with regards to family, children, looks, knowledge, wealth, and so on, health and whatsoever, right? So when Allah has a portion for some people more than you, that is Allah's portioning, right? So it's not for you to decide who deserves what. So hasad in a way is a minor form of shirk, because as if you disagree with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His portioning, right? And you have your own ideas as to how it should be, and you feel that you know better than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? It's a form of shirk. So you're trying to remove what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given other people. So it is a dreadful, a deadful disease that has destroyed many of the reciters and the scholars. And he says here, the reciters of Quran and the scholars, and even more. Right? So if the reciters and the scholars are affected by this disease, so what more, he says? So فَضْلًا عَنِ الْعَامَّةِ وَالْجُهَالِ. So even more on the common person and the ignorant. Because the reciters and the scholars, they know about hasad, yet they fall into it. And they have hasad against each other. Right? And that's one of the worst diseases for scholars or for ulama or for asatiza, to just have hasad, one against the other. Someone more popular, someone has more likes, someone has a more the greater following, someone has that. It's such a disease from Allah, from shaitan, who has put it in your heart, right? So he says that. So even more on the common person who does not know about hasad and the ill effects of hasad. Hatta ahlakahum wa awradahum an-nar. Right, until this hasad destroys them and causes them to enter into the fire, or makes it compulsory for them to enter into the fire. أما تسمعوا قول رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ستة يدخلون النار بستة العرب بالعصيانه العرب بالعصبية والأمراء بالجور والدهاقين بالكبر والتجار بالخيانة وأهل الرساتيق بالجهل والعلماء بالحسد. So he says here, 6 people, the hadith, 6 people enter the hellfire by 6 things. Right, 6 people enter the hellfire by 6 things. The first one, right, is the Arab here. It means the Bedouin, right, the people of the outskirts, because it's not so much that it is them, right, but they tend to have this characteristic, right. So it's not to say that only Bedouins who are, because here it means stubborn, right, Bedouins who are stubborn. They don't want to listen to the the advice or to what is true. They're stubborn. Right? So not as Bedouins, but the Bedouins are mentioned here because most of them are Bedouins. Right? Most of the Bedouins are actually, they become stubborn. Right? But even anyone, right, who is stubborn, when you hear the truth and someone advises you, you are stubborn and you reject it. Right? Then there are people of the hellfire. Umara al-Juri. Right, Umara are the leaders, the Amir, the leaders, the presidents and leaders. Jur Zalim, right, they are evil. Ad-Dahaqin, yeah. Yes, number two. Number 1 is the stubborn Bedouin. The Bedouin that is stubborn. Number 2, the leaders who are oppressive, evil and oppressive leaders. Number 3, Ad-Dahahin. Dahahin is like a penghulu, like a leader of a people, like a leader, right? Bil kibri, right, and they have arrogance, right? Leaders who have arrogance. At-tujaru bil khiyanati, the trader who is treacherous and he cheats, right? And number 5, ahlu rasatiqu bil juhli, right? Rasatid is the one that is is also in the Rasatid are also people in the kampung, right? Bil juhli, or the people who are far from knowledge by their ignorance. Al ulama'u bil hasadi, and the scholars by their envy, right? Right, so it is also and why? Because hasad, it is of the worst adab a person can have with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. right? Because they are not pleased with Allah's qada, with Allah's decree on the matter. So it says here, وَإِنَّ بَلِيَّةً بَلَغَ شُؤْمُهَا أن أوردت العلماء النار لحقيق أن يحذر منها واعلم أن الحسد يهيج 5 أشياء. Right, so here it says, right, and so you see also of the worst form that the ulama actually enter into the fire, right? Ulama an-nar, right? The ulama of the fire, right? That they are not that they need to be warned by this, against this hasad. So he mentions here there are 5 things, right? There are 5 five effects of hasad. So the first effect of hasad, أحدها إفساد الطاعات, right? That it destroys good deeds. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم الحسد يأكل الحسنات كما تأكل النار حطبا. Right? Hasad eats up a person's good deeds just as fire eats up wood. Right? Hasad eats up a person's good deeds just as fire eats up wood. The second one, الثاني فعل المعاصي والشرور, right? To do acts of disobedience and evil. على ما قال وهب بن منبه رحمه الله تعالى للحاسد 3 علامات. Right? For the one who is envy, there are 3 signs. يتملق إذا شهد ويغتاب إذا غاب ويشمت بالمصيبة. Right, so for the one who have hasad, there are 3 signs, 3 main signs on the person who has hasad. Right. So the first one, يتملق إذا شهد. Right, so when he sees the one that he has hasad, right, he in a sense, what they use يتملق, like he is gentle, or he is he flatters, he in a sense he shows a two-faced, it's a two-facedness in front of them. Yes. So he shows a two-face here. So she praises the person in front of the person, and then when he goes away, he backbites. He backbites this person, and he is pleased when the one who has hasad, who is afflicted by hasad, has affliction. So he's one who is pleased when the one whom he has hasad on is afflicted, and that is the one with hasad. So 3 signs of the one with hasad. In front of the one that they have envy, they show, they flatter and they praise and they whatsoever. Behind their backs, they gossip, they backbite. And then when something bad happens to the one that is having hasad, and the one that they have hasad on, then they rejoice. They rejoice when bad things happen to them. And you see the story of Abu Lahab. Abu Lahab, when Rasulullah's son passed away, his son passed away, and even in our time, these believers, even when people's children pass away, usually you will observe a moment of silence, right? To feel for the people who have lost a child. And for Rasulullah, when his son passed away, Abu Lahab was gleefully laughing and announcing to everyone the loss of Rasulullah's child. Right, so in a sense, you see how they behave. These people of hasad, they like seeing the one that they have hasad on go through problems and tribulations. They enjoy it. That's 3 already. So the first one is they show nice. They're nice towards them in their face. Second one is that behind their back they backbite, and third one, first and second. They backbite, and the third one is that they rejoice over the musibah of the one they have hasad on. Qultu, so he says, I say, وحسبك أن الله تعالى أمرنا بالاستعاذة من شر الحاسد فقال ومن شر حاسد إذا حسد. It is enough for you that Allah has commanded us to seek protection from the evil of the envier. And Allah in Surah Nas, and from the evil of the envier when he envies. Right? So, and the envier it can be human beings, it can be people who do black magic, the magician, the sahir, black magic, shaitan, right? Who is jealous of human beings, right? Shaitan, he is up till today, he is jealous of the human being, and he's all out to destroy the human being. Shaitan, right? So, right, and it is, and this Hasad, right? He is mentioned 2 times, right? In this Surah Nas, right? Allah SWT mentions the Hasad in Surah Nas, right? To show the severity of this Hasad, and the one who has Hasad. So he says here, كما أمر بالاستعاذة من شر الشيطان الرجيم والساحر. Right, as how Allah has commanded us to seek protection from shaitan and protection from the sahir, from the magician. In the Quran, Allah has taught us. So which puts it all together. The shaitan, the one who does magic, and the envier, they're all in the same camp. They're the same type of people. And because the people who are envious, they use magic. And magic is basically shaitan. They use shaitan against other people. So he says here, فَانْظُرْ كَمْ لَهُ مِنَ الشَّرِّ وَالْفِتْنَةِ حَتَّى أَنْزَلَهُ مَنْزِلَةَ الشَّيْطَانِ وَالسَّاحِرِ حَتَّى أَنْ لَا مُسْتَعَانَ عَلَيْهِ وَلَا مُسْتَعَاذَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. So he said, look at this, and look at how terrible the one with Hasad is, to the point that Allah equates him to the shaitan, and Allah equates him to the magician, the one with Hasad. And so it's really terrible disease that we have, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we have in this existence. Inshallah, we don't have it in ourselves lah, inshallah, but we have in the existence in this world. And there are people who are afflicted by Hasad. It's one of the worst afflictions, to have Hasad, especially on someone else's religion. You hate that someone else is religious, or you hate that they memorize the Quran, or you hate that they are doing acts of goodness. You hate it that they're volunteering. You hate it. Right? This is of the worst, most despicable forms of akhlaq a person can have. This kind of behavior.
They say that they hate it because they think that this person is showing off.
Then they must also cure themselves, because then they have su'uzan. They're having a bad opinion. So you can't just assume that they're showing off. You don't know. Yeah. So if you, like, for example, you don't hate it. You see, if someone is preaching wrong things, if it's wrong things, then you say, for sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? So you don't like that someone is preaching wrong things for sake of, and you want them to stop, or to change, or to be rectified for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's sake. Right? But you can't hate people, because even hating is a disease of the heart. Right? To hate anyone is a disease of the heart. We're not allowed to hate. So he says here, right? So and that there is no help and no protection against Hasad except with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Only Allah can remove Hasad from you, and only Allah can help you from the one who has Hasad. Right? If there are people who have Hasad on you, then subhanallah, right? I mean, there is an enemy that is against you, and you're not even aware of it, because they show a happy face in front of you, so you don't even know that they are actually jealous of you and what they might do. So many people in this world, like, you get affected by sihr and by this and by that, and you have no clue who. Right? Why would someone want to afflict sihr? On you, you're like, I don't do anything. Right? So the Hasad is just this envier who's silent and by himself, and he does his evil, right, against other people. Yes. And Allah can also protect you from the one who has Hasad on you. Is that severe disease that Allah has taught us that only seek Allah's help. There's no other way around this. Only Allah can help you remove it, and Allah can help you protect yourself from it, right, from Hasad. The third one, الثالث التعب والهم من غير فائدة. Right, so Hasad, what it does to a person, it makes them tired and always worrying, always thinking, they're being consumed by their thoughts and their hatred of whoever they have Hasad on, and there is no benefit to it. In fact, there's destruction for them in this world and the next world. because of their hasad on other people. Subhanallah, this kind of like knowledge should be spread to other people, because many people suffer from hasad and they don't realize they suffer from hasad. Many, even like older, like you see makcik sometimes, the older people, they actually have hasad, but you don't realize they actually have hasad because they never learnt about hasad and the destructive vice of hasad. Same thing with backbiting. Backbiting is also a terrible disease, but not many people talk about it. And no one actually emphasizes to you the especially in our society, people don't actually see the how vile backbiting is and how vile hasad is. Right. So he says here, right, bal ma'a dhalika wizrun wa ma'siyatun. So rather it is a sin, that is going to weigh on you. Kama qala ibn Sammaki rahimahullahu, as Ibn Sammak said, lam ara zaliman ashbaha bil mazlumi min al hasid nafasun da'imun wa aqalun ha'imun wa ghammun lazimun. Right, so he said that I've not seen any oppressor more similar to the one he is oppressing than the envier. So he said, I've never seen any oppressor more similar to the one he is oppressing than the envier. That means, as much as making the one he is envying miserable, he himself is also miserable. You see, the one who is envying is miserable, and the one who is being envied is miserable. This makes everybody miserable. And it is envy. So he's saying, no, of all diseases, hasad is like the worst, because you destroy your own self and you consume your own self. As long as you try to destroy the other person, you yourself are being destroyed. Especially for those who are working with jinn and working with black magic. They have the jinn coming to them and feed from them and don't know what, they sell their souls and whatever. It's misery. Misery on top of misery. They're never going to be happy. Ever. Hasad will never bring happiness to a person. Ever. Right? So it's misery on top of misery on top of misery. So he says here, I've never seen an oppressor more similar to one oppressed than the hasid, than the one who has hasad. Right? He has a self that is lowly. He has a low self. He has an occupied or very worrying mind. His mind is always occupied, and he's always in depression. Because he's always thinking about, he's so obsessed with the object of envy. So obsessed. So actually, in a way, the one who is envying, in a way, he is flattering the one that he's envying. Because he wants what you want. So in a way, there is actually a form of it's a very, twisted form of flattery. But in a way, the one who is envying is so pathetic, because the one that they hate, they actually see higher than them. That's why they're envying that person. Okay, so subhanallah. May Allah protect us from this disease. It's such a terrible, terrible disease. So, وَالرَّابِعُ عَمَى الْقَلْبِ, right, the blindness. And the fourth one, the blindness of the heart. It's a very bad term.
I think it's like, that isn't accept, because in the sense that, you see good.
That could be like, depending on what context, okay? So if it's to a child, who you tell a child, don't go there, you're gonna fall, you're gonna get hurt, and they go there and they get hurt, and the mother says, parang muka, good, kena. Okay, that one is more, you try to teach a child, and that's different, right? But if let's say there's someone you really hate, or hasad whatsoever, and then they lose their job, or they lose their family, or they lose their whatever, they do something, musibah, they get a musibah. And you say, you deserve it. Right? That one is a disease in the heart. You have a disease in your heart when you say that. It's really not hasad, it means hatred. It could just be hatred. Right? So, but it's still a disease. It's a terrible disease. You never say to someone, you deserve it. And whenever anything bad happens to them, it's a terrible thing to say, right, to anyone. And I won't even say, like even for a child, don't say it to them also. Right? So even you say to them, don't touch that, and they touch it. And then they get hurt. Right? All you can say is, next time listen to me. You see, I said that, and they don't listen to me. I teach them a lesson lah. I teach them a proper lesson. When I say something, you listen to me, okay? That's all. See? Listen to me, and now you're hurt. But don't go like parang muka. That kind of thing, you know. I mean the thing about parents is that you must choose your words in how you teach. So you don't just lash out or use harsh words, on them. You're not teaching them anything. Right? But if you just say, you say to them, don't play with that, the fire or whatsoever. When they burn it and they burn themselves. You say, see, I told you. Next time, listen to me. I know this will happen. Like that lah. Right, so they will listen to you next time lah, insyaAllah. InsyaAllah they will listen to you.
What about
Right, so
like let's say mother-in-law and the wife, and then they both have like this jealousy towards the husband or the son.
that one is on the wife to understand that at the end of the day, your husband is a son of this woman, and you came later on into his life. So that one is more of correcting the mindset of wives. Correct your mindset. Like he is her son from his birth, and he's an obligation to his mother. So she will always be above you. It's not a competition. You will never win. And she shouldn't try to win. You should try to be at service to him to help him with his mother. That's what it should be. Right? So understand that he is a son and she's a mother. And my teacher will say that, he has only one mother. That it is compulsory on him to serve. He to serve this one mother of his. And if you keep on with your terrible behavior and your competition and your hasad and your whatever, he can find another wife. He won't find another mother. So he has one mother. But if you're going to be that difficult, you just leave here and find another wife. Play your cards well. Yeah, but the wife, so the mother, he can't cut that tie. It's haram on him. He needs to serve his mother. It's wajib. But the wife, she's being very difficult. He can leave you. So these women don't understand. You don't own your husbands. And they don't, and you are not competing with his mother. You shouldn't be. And how she should understand it is that she should imagine herself with her own son. When you have sons, would you want that in the future your son's wife competes with you for your son's service? You wouldn't want that. You brought up your son since he was a baby, and you brought him up and everything, right? And then now he married off. Would you want that your son, chooses his wife over you? As a mother also, you like, and who else do you have besides your son? Because you have only one son, and who else do you have besides your son? Right? So it's on the wife to fix her thinking. Her thinking that it's not a competition. It's really not. And you shouldn't have envy, because who are you kidding trying to envy the mother? It's not even a you have no chance lah. Right, there's no chance. For you to say, if someone says, I'm envious that you love your mother more than me, so they say you say that, of course I love my mother more than you. It's my mother, say. She's my mother. What do you expect? It's wajib for me to love her more. It's my mother. Right, so subhanallah, I don't know, you wonder why does this even exist? That you can't see that he needs to be with his mother, or she needs him there. That's you wonder, right? How why is there? And then actually you don't have to wonder also. It's all on our drama series.
Yeah,
so when you on Surya and everything, they feed this kind of poisons in the heads of young women. Not poison. Right, so she hates the mother-in-law and and everything, and is plotting and scheming and trying to get rid of the mother-in-law and all that. I always remember this. I never watched this show stuff, but it's one show that invited me for a long time. I don't know what it's called, but it's a pyramid show. Pyramid show with the mother. I remember one scene. This one scene. I was very young, where the mother was crying. What show was that? He has his wife, right? I thought you know. No, it's a pyramid show whereby his wife was very beautiful. Then the mother was left behind, and then he left the mother for the wife. Okay, I don't know what show it was.
Not
Or is it?
Yeah, it was his mother-in-law. The woman left the mother for him.
Oh, I thought that one was the son left the mother. Oh, that one is Badang. What's his name? What's that? What's his name? The one that on the ship. On the ship, the one who got on the ship, and then he was Tanggang. Yeah, anyhow, all these Malay stories lah. The one Tanggang, the one where he very poor with his mother, and then he goes off to work on the ship. Then eventually he marries the daughter of the princess or something like that lah. So when the ship finally came back to his town, the mother was so excited that he came back. Then she went out and she. Yeah, and she was poor and blind, but she went out and she brought his favorite food, everything to give him. But he scorned her. He scorned his because he was now rich, married to the princess. The mother was poor and blind. People were like, who is this woman? People all like hina her lah. They look down on her. And then he was like, and she said, that's my son. And then they say, is this your mother? And then he says, no. He disowned her. Then she dua. She dua against her son. The dua of the mother whose heart is broken. Beware of that dua. Because that dua immediate. Yeah, it turned into stone. Its entire ship turned into stone. Probably it's a true story. I think probably it's a true story. Because they're seeing something Allah would do. Right? They say two punishments that happen in this dunya. Okay, one there's one maksiat that happens in the dunya before akhirat. One maksiat that a person does, whereby the punishment, or some says the punishment is brought here and is even worse in the akhirat. And that punishment is derhaka of the parents. That means you hurt your parents. The punishment happens here first, and then in the akhirat even worse. So for me, I think that Tanggang story was probably true. Probably it happened. What's that really? She dua, Ya Allah, punish him, and Allah turn them into stone. Because there are stories about Allah SWT does turn people into stone. He does, right? In of the past, Allah SWT does turn people into stone. Right? So probably it's a true story that actually really happened. Right? To a mother who was broken-hearted. Right? And then there are like Indonesian series of mothers who, because their sons were so rude to them, they dua that lightning strike them, and then lightning strike them. Then the dua straight away to Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala. Right, so anyway, a wife who has envy against a mother-in-law, this is the most ridiculous form of envy to me. It's so ridiculous. Because, who in the world would try to compete with a mother? Right, in her place in the son's heart. And the service of a son to his mother is priority. It is, and sons must understand that. Sons must understand that your mother is your priority. Right, she wants you to serve her, you serve her. Right? She is your priority. And even if she, especially see in Islam, to look after old people is highly rewarded. Why? Because it's hard. It's not easy. Allah knows that looking after old people is not easy. They have all kinds of requests, and they have their ways, and their this and their that. But Allah knows it's not easy. That's why the reward is so high. If it was to walk in the park, it was easy. Only, why would the reward be so high like that? It's to serve your mother. Right? And Rasulullah said in a hadith, right, may he be disgraced. Right? The one who saw one or two of his parents live till old age, but he does not enter paradise by them. That means you see one or both of your parents enter old age, and you did not serve them enough to get into paradise. Because you really, you were short of serving your parents. Subhanallah, it's kind of hadith. So for us, so in a sense, it's education lah. Actually, it's education on our women, right? To really understand, right? And also, as Muslims all together, we understand that the greatest sunnah of Rasulullah is service. That is his sunnah, service. When you're made to serve, be happy and be grateful, because that is the way of our Prophet. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. He was more than happy to serve. The one who serves is foremost. So if you're asked to serve your mother-in-law, you're asked to serve, right? Embrace it as more reward for you. Don't be resentful, of it. Why must I do it? Why must I do it? Of course, you don't have to do it if you don't want to, and because it is not your mother, and in fact he should be serving her. But you see, it's more reward for you. It's just more reward for you. I should be happy someone asked me to serve. Alhamdulillah, I get to serve. More reward for me. Right, so alhamdulillah. Right, so it's a mindset shift lah. It's a full mindset shift.
So for the husband, mother comes first. For the wife, husband comes first, right?
For the wife, when it comes to instruction, right? Instruction, she is under her husband. Instruction. But she still has to serve her parents. Right? So everybody must still serve your parents lah, in any way. Right? But of course, ask your husband for permission. And of course, if parents, if you have a son, to ask your son. Right? But if you only have daughters, for example, because you have only daughters. So if parents have a son, right, your son is the one that's supposed to stand up to your needs. Okay, so you in a sense you keep going to your son to ask them, right? Because your daughter, right, is tied up, right? Serving her husband, right, and her family and everything. If a woman has only daughters, right, no sons, how now, right? So this woman, the ulama, they do say that when you marry off your daughters, right, to actually make a condition with the son-in-law, you should have foresight, right? Right?
But
To have
in
foresight with
any
your
case,
son-in-law.
I also feel that, for women, it's more natural for us to be caregiving towards our parents than for the men. So when it comes to taking care of parents later on, monetary, if you
Monetary, the
the
sons.
husband, the sons can have to take care. But I think in terms of caregiving, at the end of the day,
The daughters.
it tends to be
So
the daughter.
so it's ihsan. It is ihsan on all ends. So from the husband have ihsan also to understand. You have you have old parents, right? To understand you have old parents. The husband from his ihsan, right? That he says, okay, go and look after your mother. Right? You can bring her into our house. And there are a lot of men that do that actually. They bring in their mother-in-law and look after your mother-in-law. My father for years looked after my grandmother in our house, right, for years. He didn't have to, but he did. Right? So it's only for a charity on his part. Right? So it's ihsan lah. Right? But if he says, no, I want my mother to stay with us, he has a right to that. He does have a right to that. Right? So the ulama, they say that if a woman does not have sons, so for example, to stay in the house of. So if let's say, if you really, your husband passed away, you're alone by yourself, say if your children, you should actually go to the house of your son. Because your son, right? But if you have no sons, when you have daughters, right? Then when your daughters do get married off, to actually explain to, and these are things to see, foresight. Explain to the son-in-law that I only have daughters. When I reach my old age, and I'm by myself, I hope that you will consider and allow me to stay in your house. Just be clear lah. You're marrying into a family whereby they're all women. There are no men in this family, so you would have to allow for us. I mean, it's more for him as a Muslim. Ihsan, it's ihsan. But things that it's just our society. Diseases everywhere. So you want to rectify one, and someone else has a disease, and you rectify the other one, and then the disease here is there. So if everyone is on what Islam is teaching us, of ihsan to each other, of goodness to each other, a lot of things will be solved in society. But of course, it's but that's what. But things like that's what we said. All these shows on TV is destroying the minds of people. I mean, almost every show has about a cheating case. In Suria, like
Hasad.
there's Hasad, there's cheating, there's
It's not spiced up. That's the drama.
Hasad spice on it.
yeah, and this is poisoning the minds of people watching it. Subhanallah. I really don't. You should stay away from all these poisons. They come into your mind. So it says here, so الرابع عم القلب, it makes the heart blind. Hasad blinds the heart. حتى لا يكاد يفهم حكما من أحكام الله عز وجل. فلقد قال سفيان الثوري رحمه الله: عليك بطول الصمت تملك الوراء ولا تكن حريصا على الدنيا تكن حافظا ولا تكن طعانا تنجو من ألسن الناس ولا تكن حاسدا تكن سريع الفهم. Right, so he says here that hasad, it blinds the heart. And once it blinds the heart, It blinds the heart, meaning the heart is no longer able to understand the laws of God. So it's got the blindness of the heart. The heart hears the Sharia and cannot understand it as how it is. They hear halal and haram, they don't get it. Very scary, eh? It's very scary. They're hearing haram, what they're doing is haram, but they just deny it. It's not haram. People will say what you're doing is very haram. You're trying to destroy someone else's name, you're slandering, you're backbiting, or whatsoever. Can't hear it. They can't understand it. It is the blindness of Hasad. It's a very scary situation to be in. May Allah protect us from this kind of situation. Right. So then he says, Sufyan al-Thawri said that for you to keep quiet mostly, that means to have long spans of keeping quiet. This is advice. Have long spans of keeping quiet. Right? Because the more you talk, the more mistakes you make. Right? The more sins you commit. So have long spans of quietness, and you are able to have wara'. Right? What is wara'? Wara' is scrupulousness. So when you're quiet and you observe things around you, you will have more scrupulousness, right? And you have more fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You have khushu'. You have and it also brings you out of the shubha. You are removed from what is doubtful, and you keep silence. And so keep silence, right? Keep silence to yourself. Keep silence for a long period of time. And then he says, and do not covet this world, right? Because you do not covet this world. وَلَا تَكُنْ حَرِيصًا عَلَى دُنْيَا تَكُنْ حَافِظًا. Right? Do not covet this world. Do not try to run after this world, right? But protect it, right, from the evil. Right? وَلَا تَكُنْ طَعَانًا. That means you insult people, you slander people. The ta'an, right? To insult and slander people, right? By ta'anan tanju min al-sinas. And if you don't do this, right, you don't slander people, then people will not slander people. In a sense, you will not be slandered by people. Right? In a way, right? This is what he's saying. The last is what he's saying here, right? And don't become envious. When you stop yourself from being envious, right, you'll be able to understand things better of his religion. Right? If you remove envy from your heart, you will understand things quicker and faster. Okay, number 5, last one. وَالْخَامِسُ الْحِرْمَانُ وَالْخَزْلَانُ فَلَا يَكَادُ يَظْهَرُ بِمُرَادٍ وَلَا يُنْصَرُ عَلَى عَدُوٍ كما قال حاتم الأصم رحمه الله تعالى الضغين غير ذي دين والعائب غير عابد والنمام غير مأمون والحسود غير منصور. Right, so he says here, right, that the person who has hasad, he will be prevented. It means he will be prevented, or he will be forbidden from any form of goodness. The one who has it, forbidden from goodness, right? And he will be Allah will turn away from this person.
Forbidden or prevented? I feel like
Mana.
forbidden is so...
Mana, forbidden, mana. The word is mana. Harman. That means it's made haram on you to have goodness. So harman means it's made haram on you to have goodness if you are someone of hasad. So that is subhanAllah, the way he does it and writes all these things out, you're like, but stay away from this disease. It's just destruction after destruction. And Hazlan is the opposite of taqwa. Or tawfiq, it's the opposite of tawfiq. Hazlan is the opposite of tawfiq. What is tawfiq? Tawfiq is you having the ability to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So khazlan is you having no ability to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're just not able to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Which means that Allah has turned away from you and has stopped giving you tawfiq to obey Him. That is the hasid. Allah has turned away and does not give you any ability to obey Him. It means you're in your heedlessness, blindness, and you don't even realize that you're there. Right? Such as
Then how do you get out of it?
You need to identify your inner hasad.
But that's what I know.
Then they must learn about hasad.
So but then to learn and everything is like a form of goodness. Like, is there level to hasad?
which is why that the ulama say if you go for 3 days without learning or having lessons, your heart dies. The ulama say that, right? It's because why? Without lessons, that's how you go into the trap of shaitan. Because you're blind, you don't know where the traps are. So it's important to keep coming. Because only through lessons that your eyes will be wide open to shaitan's traps around you. You know, subhanallah. It's really so you're wondering that what like so what you ask Allah to protect you and those around you. And you tell people whom you trust that if you see any terrible disease on me, please tell me. And you must dua also that you listen lah. The danger is that they tell you and then you don't listen. And no, what do you know? You know, and then you turn away from them.
So I understand that if you are being haram to have any kind of goodness,
Oh no,
make
goodness.
dua, you won't even be thinking about dua, you won't even thinking about.
But that is the end of the state of having hasad.
That is
The extent of it, yeah,
Is there
levels,
levels?
the extent of it.
like
Yeah. So if someone is having
it's like really hasad.
hasad. So if someone having a bit of hasad and they realize it, they're struggling against it, may Allah have mercy on them. Allah has mercy, Allah can protect them. But if they are relishing their hasad, you know, they're loving it, you know, or they're not drowning, they're drowning in their hasad and they allow it to consume their thoughts and their actions. And then they take actions to act on their hasad. They take black magic, they slander, they destroy, they whatever. And that one is when all of goodness is haram on them. It removes goodness from them. That's the extreme of it lah. It is completely. But if Allah wants to guide, He can still guide. There could be one day someone hears something to them, or one day they see something, that they wake up, or the death of a person, they wake up. Right? Allah can still have mercy on them and wake you up. Right? So don't say that once you're blind forever. If Allah wants to give you back your inner sight to see how wrong you are, He can. If Allah wants to wake up your dead heart, He can. He can bring it back to life. He can. Allah has changed many of the worst sinners to the best servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He can. Right? So ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, let's go that way in the first place lah. You know, protect us from these terrible, destructive vices, right? In a human being. Right, so Hatim al-Asam, right, he said, what did he say? The Daghin. Hatim al-Asam, what did he say? Yeah. So Hatim al-Asam said,
The spiteful person is not religious.
yeah, the spiteful person has no religion. And the spiteful person is spiteful. Why is it not part of our religion? Really, you know, all these traits. And then the
Fault finder is not a worshipful servant.
right, the fault finder is not a worshipful servant. Find spots for other people. We dig out their fault. We dig out. The namamu ghayru ma'mun. And the namam is the tail bearer. What did they put there? Slanderer, tail bearer. Right, he is not safe. Right, he's not safe.
Worthy of trust.
Not trusted, not safe. Trusted. And the hasud ghayr mansur. And the one with hasad, Allah will not help. Allah will not assist. It's like you said, the one with hasad, he is fighting Allah. Because Allah has given people what He has given. So when you have hasad, you're disagreeing with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to an extent. Right? So, subhanallah. قلت الحسود كيف يظفر بمراده ومراده زوال نعم الله تعالى عن عباده المسلمين وكيف ينصر على أعدائه وهم عباد الله والمؤمنون. Right, so he says, and I say, the one who is constantly in the hasad, the hasud, constantly in hasad, how is he ever going to attain his goals? Because his goal is to remove Allah's blessings from Allah's servants, the Muslims. That is his goal. So how is he ever going to attain his goal? You can't do that. Right? And how is he ever going to be helped when his enemies are the servants of Allah? the slaves of Allah, the Muslims, and he wants to be helped, how is he going to be helped? And he says here, وَلَقَدْ أَحْسَنَ أَبُو يَعْقُوبَ رَحِمَهُ اللَّهُ فِيمَا قَالَ. And Abu Yaqub, who has said, Allahumma sabbirna ala tamamin ni'ami ala ibadika wa hassin ahwalana. So his dua, oh Allah, make us patient on seeing the completion or the perfection of your blessing on your servants. It means fill us with patience and happiness to see other people having a lot of blessings. Be happy for other people when they have blessed from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and rectify our states. وَحَسِّن, improve and rectify our states. وَإِنَّ دَاءً يُفْسِدُ عَلَيْكَ الطَّاعَةَ وَيُكْثِرُ شَرَّكَ وَمَعْصِيَتَكَ. For surely it is a disease that destroys your acts of good deeds. It increases your evil and your disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَيَمْنَعُكَ رَاحَةَ النَّفْسِ. And it prevents you from resting. Because you're always having resting because you're always having envy. Right? So you can't rest because you're just hitting all the time. Basically, it's like in English, the word is quite, you're consuming yourself. It's devouring you. Right? The one who is the who was afflicted, right, when it comes to a story of jealousy, is the one who is jealous. He is the one who is most afflicted, right, in the entire situation, more than the one whom he is jealous upon. وَفَهَمِ الْقَلْبِ, right, and you have no more understanding in your heart. وَنُصْرَةَ عَلَى الْأَعْدَاءِ, and you have no help given to you over your enemies, because having hasad, you're in the same ranks as shaitan. وَظَفَرَ بِالْمَطْلُوبِ فَأَيِّ دَاءٍ يَكُونُ أَدْوَأَ مِنْهُ. So what disease is more severe? Right? What disease is more destructive than this disease? فَعَلَيْكَ بِمُعَالَجَةِ نَفْسِكَ مِنْ ذَلِكَ وَاللَّهُ تَعَالَى وَلِيُّ التَّوْفِيقِ بِمَنِّهِ وَكَرَمِهِ. So it's on you to cure yourself from this disease, and Allah is the one who gives ability, and Allah is the one who is all generous. Right? So he's just mentioning the diseases. Right? There are other parts whereby he mentions the cures, and he does point us to his other Burhanuddin, right, for us to look there, and he has gone through the cures in detail of these diseases. Right? Alhamdulillah, we're going to stop there inshallah. Right, because our next then he goes to another disease, which is disease of hastening. Right, haste is from shaitan. We're going to understand what is haste from shaitan, and there are a few things that whereby it is encouraged to hasten. For example, to start the prayer, to pray the earlier time is encouraged, right? To hasten tawbah. Right, to hasten towards tawbah. Right, there are things you must hasten to, but haste, as in the hadith, haste is from shaitan. He makes you hasty through things. You don't think through things, and you do things hastily, and after that you do more wrong than good. Thereafter, so inshallah we'll stop there. So, any question?
Next week question.
Oh yes, there's no classes next week, because I'll be occupied. I have a few events going on. So the following week.
So this hasad is both if we have hasad and if someone has hasad on us.
Yes.
Both are also.
Yes, but if you have hasad, the destruction is in your akhirah. If someone has hasad on you, then it's in the dunya. And inshallah your sins will be forgiven because you suffer from their evil. And Allah will forgive your sins, and inshallah there will be high levels for you in paradise. So in reality, it's not really an affliction lah, because it's dunyawi only. It won't go to the akhirat. But if you have hasad, they will say, whenever you know that you're being, like for example, black magicked, make dua for the one who black magic you, because they are in a worse position than you, because they are consumed so much, they have turned to black magic. Right? So in the sense, they need dua lah, kesian lah, whatever they are in.
Can I go back? Just say someone does say here. Can they mention tawbah?
Yes. They must tawbah properly lah. I mean, then they will go through a lot of difficulty lah. There will be a lot of difficulty, but there is tawbah.
Can be done.
Alright, we'll stop there. Sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Al-Fatiha. Anna Allah yarzuqna ilman nafi' wa 'amal khair wa ista'lim bilal al-huda wa yusalli ala nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam wa rawahi ma'animina wa mashayikhina wa zadqa alayna wa ila hadrati nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Al-Fatiha. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Wal 'asr. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين.